The Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, yesterday vowed to go ahead with its planned strike action today in protest against the decision by the Dangote refinery not to allow drivers of its newly imported compressed natural gas trucks join any trade union. But the federal government pleaded with the union, which also kicked against the massive importation of the Dangote trucks, which it said will put its members out of business, to reconsider its stance on the nationwide industrial action, pledging to broker a dialogue to resolve the dispute. The president of NUPENG, Williams Akporeha, and the general secretary of the union, Olawale Afolabi, in a statement in Abuja, maintained that the petroleum tanker drivers branch of NUPENG would refrain from lifting petroleum products from depots nationwide. NUPENG also disowned a statement attributed to the president of the Direct Trucking Company Drivers Association, Enoch Kanawa, which claimed that NUPENG could not speak for members of petroleum tanker drivers. Kanawa had urged Nigerians to disregard the planned industrial action. The leadership of NUPENG declared that the Kanawa-led DTCDA was a creation of the refinery, which has vowed not to allow its recruited truck drivers to join NUPENG. The union argued that NUPENG is the only statutorily recognized union authorized to unionize the drivers. Moving on to other stories, we come here to the southwest. The Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, Osun State Chapter, has disclosed that the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation is plotting to preempt the Supreme Court by allegedly preparing to pay withheld local government allocations in Osun into the accounts of court-sacked All Progressives Congress chairman and councillors. In a press statement signed by its president, Dr. Nathaniel Ogungbangbe, the union warned that the alleged move would amount to gross misappropriation and a brazen attempt to subvert the rule of law. Osun NULGE therefore issued a strong warning to the Accountants General of the Federation, his officials, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and its officials to desist from obeying illegal directives, stating that they are not politicians and are not involved in the politics that is involved. However, NULGE explained that as a union, it has a duty and obligation to protect members' jobs and stand by its members whose positions are being usurped by imposter politicians. Going on to the south and to insecurity, to the north, Borno State Governor Babagana Umara Zulum has visited Dara Jamal community in Bama local government area to commiserate with the families of victims killed by Boko Haram insurgents on Friday night. At least 63 people, including 5 soldiers, lost their lives in the attack. Arise News correspondent Sunny Adamu reports.
It's a journey to Darul Jamal, a community near Banki town along the Cameroonian border in Bama local government area of Borno State. For survivors here, the memories of Friday night remains a nightmare as Boko Haram fighters stormed the community, going from house to house, killing indiscriminately. More than 60 people, including 5 soldiers, were killed. Most of the civilian victims had only recently returned after being resettled by the Borno State government just 2 months ago.
They kill people indiscriminately, including children and elderly people.
Okay.
They came and asked us to go inside our houses, and then we started hearing gunshots everywhere.
Governor Zulum visited the community to console the bereaved families, expressing deep grief and condemning the brutality of the attack.
Very sad. This community was resettled some months ago, and they are going about their normal businesses, but unfortunately, they had a Boko Haram attack. So we are here purposely to commiserate with them and to build their resilience.
As members of the National Assembly, we are their representatives. We are right now on recess, but be that as it may, I will convey this dastardly act, this bad news, to the President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, with a view to liaising with heads of security agencies to reinforce what the state governor has said. Security is everybody's business.
The governor acknowledged the persistent security challenges in the region and called for the immediate deployment of newly trained forest guards to work alongside the military in protecting vulnerable communities.
Close to about 60 civilian. Only 5 army personnel were lost as at now. We have to take note that the numerical strength of the Nigerian army is not enough to contain the situation. Some months back, we had a meeting in Abuja with the National Security Advisor and other heads of security agencies on the need to establish what we call the forest guards.
For residents of Darul Jamal, the attack is yet another reminder of the dangers faced by communities returning home after years of displacement. Sani Adamu, Arise News.
Thank you, Sunny. All right, so we've been able to go through the across Nigeria this morning with significant news stories. A few things to discuss this morning. Dr. Bati, good to have you on the show. And of course, we'll be taking all the stories at once, whichever one you'd like to pick on, or perhaps all of them at once. Rufai, let me start with you.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'll quickly go to the protests or the strike that I think will be averted pretty much. But I want to say some home truths today. What country do we want? We want a country where you have free enterprise and the government says they support free enterprise. Or you want a country where the unions disrupt things when it doesn't favor them. Because what was the deal in the first place? We were not all blind when Dangote started building his refinery. In fact, some people in the union now protesting today hailed the emergence of Dangote refinery to the markets. And even hailed the fact that we're having another refinery coming up on stream, the NNPC refinery, which today after $3 billion was spent, we don't know how the money was spent. And the last thing Ojulari was saying is that he wants another $60 billion for expansion to be able to push it to a 500,000 barrel per day refinery. But we saw it. He built his refinery. We thought people were going to buy from him, but some of the importers still wanted to bring in fuel externally. And they have their ecosystem and the unions at which they moved it. The only problem now is that Dangote has said, I want to make my fuel available to my people that buy from me. And I want to put 4,000 trucks on the road powered by CNG. Then it's a problem. Oh, he wants to take our jobs. He wants to do this. He wants to do that. The drivers must be unionized. Then the next thing we threaten with a strike. So, is it that everybody had selective amnesia when the PIA came into effect? And we all agree that there was a deregulation in the sector? So if somebody now decides that he wants to fundamentally control his own market chain and see how his product is distributed to the downstream and use a stream of partner petrol stations to be able to get his products, how is it the problem of other people? But they say, oh no, he's going to take jobs off the market, he's going to cause energy money. I understand their own argument, and that's why I ask, what kind of country do we want? Do we want a country for free enterprise? Do we know what this will do to investors? What if another company like Total or BP, as they used to own refineries in this country, because we forget in a hurry, the first refinery in this country was built actually by Shell Daisy. So what if they say they want to come into the ecosystem, or companies like Ineos, and they say they want to handle their own downstream value chain where they ship products to their end users? Is it going to be the lot of people complaining that, hey, they must not have the room to breathe? We must go at them. They want to take the job of our drivers. They want to disrupt the ecosystem. Anyway, we've heard that there's been a split across the ranks even of the people that are saying they want to protest. But we must learn some home truths. See, the grouse that everybody have against Dangote about the competition and everything and things like that, I'm saying I support fair business trade and fair business practices. But I'm also saying let's not stifle entrepreneurship. You can't expect a man that has invested over $20 billion in debts, mostly, and his own personal wealth, to build a refinery which no other person, even governments with over $3 billion invested in their refinery, have not been able to put in place. And he's put that in place and is looking for channels to be able to effectively distribute his petroleum products, and you say he shouldn't do that. That's why I ask again, what country do we want? We want a country of sentiment. We can keep saying we want a country of sentiment, but it's not going to grow and it's not going to fulfill, it's not going to, fulfill the hopes and aspirations of anybody. As regards insecurity, I think the security forces should do a lot as regards reading the Northeast and other parts of this country of insecurity, because when they come out, we celebrate. And the other day, we celebrated the TSS as regards the persecution of the Ansar terrorist leaders. But over 60 people and counting. Because you see, when you hear a reportage of over 60, obviously know that probably it's more than that. Because there are many factors. And that's why we have plus or minus, margin of error. And it's not only been today. It's every part of the country. The other day, the governor of Benue State was just trying to condole with some family members, giving them 5 million for their loss in Benue. The other day, it was NSCDC officers that were killed in Edo State, around Okbila area. In fact, some civil society groups, as at Sunday, were berating Governor Okpebolo because we've not had any reaction. When the hunters were killed, Governor Okpebolo was the first to go to Kano. But NSCDC officials, some civil society group are berating. Maybe he will issue a statement today. So this is just a signpost of the level of insecurity. And let me tell you something. For every 4 or 5 cases reported, know that there are about 20, 30 others that are never reported, that never makes it to mainstream media. Because the fact we're even talking about it is the fact that it happens and it made it to mainstream media. That's why we need to coordinate efforts and look deeply at what we can do to rid this country of insecurity. Now you the floor.
Dr. Bati, your take on these stories.
3 issues.
Yes.
I think the first one, let me start with Osun State.
Osun State, yes.
There's a story, the window page of the This Day newspaper today, saying that today there is, speculation, information, whatever it is, that the Office of the Attorney General is going to, give the fiat to the central bank to pay money suspended, held, kept, frozen for the local governments in Osun State since February to be given to APC members. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation. I do not think that within the purview of the Constitution of Nigeria, if the allegation is true, that the Attorney General of the Federation has the powers to violate the rule of law. He does not even have the powers to, violate whatever has been submitted to the jurisdiction of the courts of Nigeria, except he exercises his powers also provided the prosecution of nolle prosequi. But as long as that matter is still before the Supreme Court of Nigeria, as it is, I think that, it will be wrong for the Office of the Attorney General to be used to render whatever decision of the Supreme Court will be, or the, in the matter of Osun State local government allocations, to preempt it and render it academic. That, for me, is the major import of the window story in This Day newspaper this morning, which you brought up. I think the parties involved in the Osun State dispute, local government disputes, should just simply respect the rule of law. We have had persons here on this program, interested parties, observers, analysts, citing cases, AG Abia versus AG Federation, AG Lagos versus AG Federation, on the issue of the disbursement and on the issue of federalism and the rights of local councils. I think that matter needs to be resolved within the purview of the law. There are other commentators saying that, Governor Adeleke of Osun State himself, in terms of body language, is already showing that, he would like to just do whatever the Tinubu government wants. There are people saying, in terms of body language, it looks like the Attorney General of the Federation would rather do whatever the APC wants. I think we should separate politics from proper governance, from proper democracy, from the principles already enshrined in the laws of the Federation. As for Governor Zulum, identifying with victims of recent Boko Haram attacks, where he has been very consistent in that regard. Part of his assignment is to empathize with the people and to continue to reassure them. Our point is this, that look, banditry, insurgency, despite all promises by the federal government of Nigeria to address the issue, despite promises as recently as a week ago by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to say that state police is an idea whose time has come. The residual point is that the Nigerian government has the responsibility to ensure the security, the safety, the welfare of the Nigerian people, whether they are in Borno State or they are in Katsina or they are in Zamfara State. And both the subnational representatives and the federal government must have a consensus addendum, a meeting of minds in this particular regard, that nobody in this country should feel deprived. As for Petro-1, now Petro-1 and NUPENG, they seem to have come together. I think they've been joined by IPMAN, Petroleum Marketers Association, to say that they have an issue with Dangote Refinery. Now, what the Dangote Refinery did a few weeks ago, which we commented upon on this same program, is that they've been able to secure 10,000 CNG, compressed natural gas powered vehicles to take products from the Dangote Refinery, built with about $20 billion, capacity of 650,000 products per day, not to talk of the derivatives, and to take this directly to the end users. The argument of Dangote Refinery is that this will reduce costs, this will increase efficiency. And now the NUPENG, the IPMAN, and the Petro-1, they are now saying that those are the retail, the people at the retail end. They are saying, no, Dangote should not be allowed to do this. Now, this is a free market economy. The Nigerian government, having committed to a free market economy, also will subscribe to the principle that there is free entry, there is free exit. There is also, in a free market economy, competition. NNPC and the refineries never functioned. They didn't do well. Even with Bayo Ojulari in the saddle now, they are still giving us stories about Port Harcourt Refinery, Warri Refinery, Kaduna Refinery. Now, you have encouraged local investment. Dangote has put a refinery in place, and you say that some people cannot sell products. Petro-1 and NUPENG put together, they don't even have up to 3,000 trucks. So somebody comes into the market and he says, well, can we scale up this market? We are putting 10,000 into the market. Come and compete. Now, I know, I understand all those emotional arguments by NUPENG and Petro-1 and IPMAN, that they also have wives who have to go to the market. They have children whose school fees have to be paid. They should not drive them out of business. They are saying, oh, this is a case of a monopoly. Okay, if they have the capacity, can they compete? However, the Dangote Refinery, in their statement that I read, they've said, we are not pushing you out of the business. Can we also all be in this business together? You just do the business at your own level. We do the business at our own level. So it's either we want a free market economy, or we have an economy that says, well, this is command and control. You take this percentage, you take that other percentage. But at the end of the day, it's either the Nigerian people will gain or we will lose. Because if the strike goes ahead, then we won't be able to get petrol to buy. Petro-1 was saying that they will mobilize, or was it NUPENG? They will mobilize about 120,000 officials to go to petrol stations and stop petrol attendants from selling fuel from this morning. If they do that, where does that leave the rest of us? That's why the Nigerian government, should intervene. Ministry of Labor, the downstream regulator, NNPC, I think they mentioned the name of the NNPC. In fact, they even called on the security agencies to try and save the situation. We, the Nigerian people, should not be subjected to any undue hardship. What we want is efficiency. What we want is the product at a fair price. Whatever benefits the Nigerian people should be the emphasis, not the interest of people who are saying, well, we don't have the capacity, don't push us out of the market. They too can upscale. And to the extent that the Dangote refinery wants to accommodate them, I think, there should be accommodation on all sides. There should be accommodation on all sides. But if we say we're running market economy, well, market economy, after all, this is something we're very familiar with, capitalism and its discontents.
All right, okay, capitalism and its discontent. I think we've made a case, especially following the ruling with regard, in the U.S. on antitrust law, and sometimes the danger of monopoly. But I won't emphasize that today. Let me focus on NUPENG strike and some of the issues or matters arising. Yes, there are concerns around taking food from the table of these drivers who some of them belong to a wing of NUPENG for truck drivers. However, I think another pertinent issue which the Dangote refinery and the Dangote group ought to answer is around the concern of workers' wages and being protected under their membership of NUPENG. So according to what the statement released by NUPENG, one of the reasons why the agitation has arisen and why they're going on strike this morning is because the new drivers who will be driving these CNG buses, and great idea, we've talked about how we must make it more efficient so that we are able to avoid issues around fuel scarcity or anything to disturb the availability of the produce, is the barring of the members or the people who are newly hired from joining NUPENG or joining associations like this. And we know the danger of that. Now, one of the things they've raised is the fact that every worker's right is protected by the 99 Constitution for freedom of association. And by almost cajoling them to sign that part of their employment contract is stopping them from that, from accessing their rights in terms of freedom of association. Also, when it comes to the opportunity, and also when it comes to international laws as well, ILO convention, this is under the protection of workers' right to join a union in order to protect their rights. I think this is a question or perhaps a conversation that the Dangote group will have to have with these workers. So beyond the fact that they are taking the truck drivers' work and all that, is also their complaint around the condition of service for their workers and the right for them to protect the rights of their workers by ensuring that they are able to unionize and able to challenge unfair practices in the workplace. So I don't know what the Dangote refinery is afraid of from preventing these workers from signing on to being a part of a union. We know some organizations do have those clauses, and in some matters it can be illegal because, like I cited, freedom of association is guaranteed by the Nigerian union. So since they've had the opportunity, or they've been summoned, as it were, by the federal government to come to the negotiation table, I hope that those are some of the things that we consider. Yes, Dangote refinery coming on stream has been a game changer for Nigeria when it comes to the supply of PMS. But we also want to ensure that the rights of our workers are protected. We want to ensure that they have the option and opportunity to join a union so that in the event that they need to seek support or need to challenge certain provisions of the employment contract, they can do it under one umbrella. I believe that's a key area that NUPENG is also pushing for. Now, going on to insecurity, yes, we talked about Professor Zulum going to visit the casualties. Very, very sad situation in Daramajo Jal community in Bama, local government area of Borno State. Interestingly, the people who were affected were only recently resettled in that area. Borno State has been, the Northeast has been a target of Boko Haram over the years. Despite the wins and the successes we have been able to talk about and discuss and praise, they still have that menace to deal with in that part of the country. Now, these people were recently resettled in that area, and then the menace of Boko Haram coming in and unleashing terror on the community, killing over 60 people. I don't think we should ever be desensitized to the number of of people who die, especially when we see that our servicemen, military men, 5 of them were killed. Even if one person dies as a result of Boko Haram, it is enough to cause for national attention. But I think because we talk about this quite often, it's like, okay, only 60 died, only 5 people, okay, that's better than the last one where hundreds of people died. May we never get to that point in our nation where we are celebrating the fact that the number of deaths were not so many, we can manage it in quote. I don't think that was his, what he went there to say, but I'm just stating that for everyone who dies or loses their lives as a result of Boko Haram insurgency, it should be a cause for national attention. Now, on visiting them, he talked about the fact that he brought up the issue of the National Forest Guards, and I thought that was really important. In May 2025, under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, the National Forest Guard Initiative was launched. And the idea for this is to recruit more personnel who will be trained, who will be armed, and will be able to protect our forest areas, especially as we know that some of these terrorists make their camp hideouts in these forests. What they're supposed to do to recruit across the nation over about 2,000 to 4,000 personnel, train them, and then dispatch them. Now, this only started in May 2025, so we cannot really record just to what extent they've been able to make an impact. However, raising that issue again, Governor of Borno State, Professor Zulum, used the opportunity to remind the federal government, and also because it's a state and federal government initiative, that the military is overstretched. We need to look for other alternatives to increase the number of manpower manning our forest reserves. The idea for the National Forest Guard Initiative was to fight against terrorism, preserve our forest reserves area, and reclaim land that was already taken. So these are some of the areas that we should look at in terms of equipping them, recruitment. I'm not sure we've heard a lot about recruitment in that area, and this would be a big win for this administration if they're able to deploy forest guards to different areas of especially in the northeast, to guard our forests. Boko Haram has been a menace for too long, and I know that they often talk about community knowledge, complicity of some people in power, but we believe that when there's cohesion and synergy in the powers that be, we can put an end to it. It brings me back to the conversation or to the talk by the governor of Zamfara, who said he knows, at least for banditry, he has intelligence on information around this. These are the sort of things that we want. We don't want to hear just, I know where they are. It is what are we doing with information that has come out with regards to knowing where they are, knowing who they are, how they relate to the community. And so if we want to deal decisively with Boko Haram, I do believe it's very possible. Only concerted efforts and people who are, working against the government, on this matter. But I just want to say, well done to the governor for going to visit them. But even more than that is to see how we can secure the lives and properties of people under the responsibility of these governors, so that we don't have to be paying condolence visits.